Okay, so what happened, Chairman, was the letter that was sent to General Kcher set out chapter and verse as to what, and it did it in a chronological order. It set out chapter and verse as to what General Munu had been doing. And General Kcher gave the letter to General Munu. And that became a bit of a problem because the effect of that was that I think the letter is included in the flock docket. It's an annex to the flock docket.
B143.
Pardon me?
B143.
B143 is the docket. It was probably about B184 somewhere. Ah, here we go. Like, okay, it's page B184. 184. Yes, 184. Now, Chairman, the whole of this can be read into the record because it sets out chapter and verse of exactly what was going on in a chronological fashion. And this is the letter that was sent to General Kcher by my attorneys. And it starts with events that took place in 2012 and leads right up to the date of the letter. And the letter is dated 26th of May, 2015. And it talks about the dockets that I had opened. It talks about opening a docket in Silverton against Advocate Mwebi, Advocate Jiba, General Mgluli. It talks about a letter I sent to then head of DPCI, which was General Dramat, to notify him that I believed General Munu was engaged in what I could at that time describe as questionable activity. I then talk about a docket I opened in 2014 involving alleged corruption. Then I talk about an email I sent to General Kcher canvassing allegations of misconduct against General Munu in October 2014. I wrote to her again that I became aware of information because, Chairman, if you've got stuff like this going on, it's better to have it on the record before it happens. So I wrote and I informed General Kcher that I believed that General Munu was planning to have me arrested on trumped-up charges. So I wrote and told her that. I then wrote again on the 13th to advise her that I would be increasing my focus on corrupt police officers, and by implication, I meant General Munu. I then received a response on the 25th of October 2014 from General Kcher informing me that she had forwarded my complaint to General Munu. And I considered that to be, shall we say, defeating the ends of justice, because here you are making a complaint against a general that you consider to be possibly corrupt. And the next thing, the person you complained to, which is that general's boss, supplies him with a copy of the complaint. I then wrote to her again, and this time I now started involving IPID, because I thought to myself, well, if I'm just going to complain to the Commissioner of Police, and she's going to share my complaint with the person of interest, I must now involve IPID. So I wrote to her again and I copied IPID. And that was at the beginning of 2015.
Is that at the time when Robert McBride was the executive director of IPID?
That's correct. So I think he had been just about appointed around about that time, or just before then. I can't remember.
And when you referred the complaints to IPID and McBride was the executive director, did you know him at the time?
No, I didn't know him before I referred these complaints to him. In fact, I only get to know him after he was appointed. I got a phone call from a journalist one day telling me that IPID had issued an apology to me. And then I went on the website and I found that apology. And the apology was from IPID, which had previously been known as ICD, which was the Independent Complaints Directorate. And while it was ICD, I brought a court application against the ICD because they failed and/or refused to do any investigation into my allegations against General Celebi, Jackie Celebi, the late Jackie Celebi. So, because I issued a court application against ICD, by the way, we settled on an agreed court order. And the agreed court order was that they agreed to carry out the proper investigation. But by that stage, I'd more or less given up. And that was probably 2006 or 2007 or something like that. By that stage, I'd handed everything I had to the Scorpions. But they issued a report stating that they could find no wrongdoing on the part of Jackie Celebi. And a year later, of course, he was charged criminally. So I felt that I was vindicated because of their failure or refusal to investigate Jackie Celebi. But I was still not happy that they still had on their website a statement from ICD, which had now become IPID. On their website, they had a letter stating that they carried out the investigation and they could find no evidence of wrongdoing on the part of Jackie Celebi. So I wrote to them. I didn't write to Robert McBride. I wrote to IPID and I said, look, this is on your website. He's now been convicted. Don't you think it would be more appropriate if you take that down from your website? And they then took it down. I asked for an apology, but they didn't give me the apology. But after Robert McBride was appointed, without any conversation with me, and by that stage, Jackie Celebi was in prison, or hospital prison, because he didn't actually serve a day in prison. He was in a hospital, but sort of a hospital prison. What happened was I got this call from a journalist saying that IPID had issued an apology to me for the conduct of ICD in forcing me to go to court, to launch a court application, to make them do an investigation, and then to carry out an investigation and issue a report that they couldn't find any wrongdoing. In fact, the report was a bit more than that. They accused me of sour grapes. They said that actually they believed that I had pursued this matter because Jackie Celebi had been involved in the cancellation of my contract at Kcher, and they believed that therefore I had done this as a result of sour grapes. And they apologized for this. So after they apologized for that, I then decided, okay, well, since they're apologizing, there seems to be some goodwill there. So I then dragged them into my email exchanges with General Piega, and lo and behold, she was then suspended. But before she was suspended, I had meetings then with IPID. And I had the meeting at IPID, and that was the first time I met Robert McBride. And when I had the meeting with him, I sat down and explained to him everything that had been going on with these various emails to General Piecha and what I believe to be the criminal conduct of all these other interrelated parties. And he then indicated that he would carry out an investigation. But I just left my, I didn't do any further work on it. I left my lever arch files with him. And that would have been late 2014, early 2015. I think probably January 2015, something like that. And then what happened? If I recall correctly, it was either February or March 2015. Oh, I should mention that by this stage, I'd also had meetings with Anwar Dramat, General Dramat, who was the head of DPCI. And I had brought to him documentation that implicated a gentleman by the name of Radovan Kcher in unlawful conduct.
So, Mr. O'Sullivan, so how do you get these or procure these appointments with high-level officials, either in the police, with the Hawks, with IPID?
I reach out to them and I say, listen, I would like to have a meeting with you. And, you know, obviously they have the right to say, no, we don't want to meet with you. But in this case, they agreed to meet with me. So I didn't say I want a meeting with you. You know, it's nothing cagey about it at all. I just say, listen, there's stuff going on. You're the head of DPCI, and I think you need to know. You need to know a relationship between this fellow Radovan Kcher and certain generals in crime intelligence. And I met with him and I explained to him what was going on. And then I explained to him where I believed General Muno fitted into the picture. And I need to point out that I had a motive for doing this because Radovan Kcher had tried to murder me several times, actually. On the 9th of January 2014, Radovan Kcher was in jail and he was bringing a bail application. And I'd heard that he was bringing a bail application. So I put some evidence together and I went to see the prosecutor. And I said, listen, I think, you know, it's not the job of a citizen to oppose bail, but I think you should know that I believe this man has been involved in quite a lot of murders. And I produced the evidence that I believed was appropriate, which included a statement I had taken from a person living in Prague, in the Czech Republic. I had tracked this person down. He had previously been working for Radovan Kcher, and he gave me a sworn statement setting out chapter and verse about how Radovan Kcher killed certain people. And not only that, he explained in detail how Radovan Kcher had hired him to kill me. And on the 9th of January 2014, there was an attempt on my life. And the people were arrested outside my house, actually at a hotel, the Road Lodge in Sandton, close to my house. But I have video footage of them surveilling my house. And a chap by the name of, can't remember his first name, but he had a nickname, Killer Kimber. Killer Kimber came to my house and told me, listen, they're going to kill you this morning. I said, yeah, I know about it. I've got a process in place to protect myself from that from happening. So what happened was they ran an operation. I had already a person inside that crime syndicate who didn't want to be involved in what they were doing and had come to me and told me what was going on. And they arrested all of them. And when they arrested all of them, this person later gave me a sworn statement, which that sworn statement was supplied to General Poslani, implicating General Muno, because the individual that had been arrested, who was in fact a 204 witness, had implicated General Munu because one of the co-accused of him with Radovan Kcher had told to him, because after they'd been arrested, General Munu came on the crime scene and started taking their photographs with his cell phone. And the 204 witness was told by one of the accused, a chap by the name of Mia, listen, keep it to yourself, but that general's going to get us all out of here. If they book you out for investigation, just say nothing. But when they told him that, they didn't realize that he was actually a 204 witness. He was already working with the police. So this guy told them, he told the police that this fellow Mia had told him, don't worry, we're all going to be taken care of. Radovan Kcher has got that guy in his pocket. He's going to look after us. So all of this started going on at the same time. And the end result was the then Deputy National Commissioner of Police was a person by the name of Kcher Sitoli. So I got my lawyer to send a detailed letter to him.
Yeah, General Sitoli replaced General Paslani.
Yes, but while General Paslani was acting chief of police,
yeah.
General Sitoli was the Deputy National Commissioner for Police on the detective side. So he just moved up one level when he became Commissioner of Police. But at the time, and I had no issues with General Sitoli, except that things moved very quickly around that time. And eventually what happened was my investigations into Paslani led to lots of things happening to me. And when I say lots of things happening to me, I'm talking about unlawful arrest, detention, torture, assault, having my offices raided multiple times, having staff kidnapped, lots of things, and it's all documented.
Yeah, but, perhaps can we just go to that annexure where these events are catalogued, and then we can conclude
So that would be the
for today.
143.
That's the flock.
Yes, 143. So if we go to 143, Chairman, this sets out chapter and verse in a chronological order as to what all was going on. And obviously it's a lengthy document. So I want to start actually with page 139. So if we start with page 139, page 139 is the charge sheet, because in 2019, Flock was arrested and charged on the dockets that I opened against him. And that was like 7 years ago, and that trial still hasn't started. But he was arrested and charged, and this is the charge sheet that was issued. It was updated slightly. So this is actually, I think, the 24 version or 23 version, but these were essentially the same charges. And count one was attempted extortion. And if you read this attempted extortion, what Flock is alleged to have done is he'd gone to the lawyers of a divorcee, a female divorcee, and he told her that she would be arrested on charges of possession of unlicensed firearms and racketeering, and she would not be granted bail. And did by means of the said threat, attempted to induce or pressure unlawfully and intentionally obtain an advantage not due to him, to wit, to get this lady to allow Mr. her husband access to their minor daughter, who was a subject of a custody battle, and to become a witness against Paul O'Sullivan. Now, we had taken on, in respect of that matter, I had taken on, well, Forensics for Justice had taken on a pro bono case. So we would act for some people that needed help. We've acted, for example, for some community property associations where corruption has taken place and they've lost their land and stuff like that. We tried to help these people. And in this case, we tried to help her because she considered herself to be an abused wife or ex-wife.
That's Ms. Flush.
Yes.
So the charges count 1, 2, and 3
Yeah, if you look at charge 3, Chairman.
relate to her.
Yes, all these charges relate to her. But if you look at charge 3, that the accused of crime of defeating or obstructing the course of justice, and there at that place on that date and what, the accused had wrongfully and intentionally performed the following act: threatened to arrest Len Fleece on charges of possession of unlicensed firearm and racketeering, and keep her in custody unless she assisted with an investigation against Paul O'Sullivan. Now, charge 4 is even worse, because charge 4, the same warrant officer Flock was charged with, in that on or about the 29th of November 2017, and at or near Brooklyn, in the regional division of Gauteng, the accused had wrongfully and intentionally performed the following acts: deposed to an affidavit that the docket under Alberton Cass 799/11/2012 was stolen, and that he had to open a duplicate docket for purposes of investigation. And whereas the accused, when he acted aforesaid, well knew that he signed for the original docket, and that by opening a duplicate docket, he intended that his actions would have the following results or consequence: that a different decision be made than what was initially decided by the prosecution, and thus so doing the accused defeated or obstructed the administration of justice. In fact, that docket was a case that was opened against myself and one of my staff. We carried out the investigation in 2012. And that investigation was for a deceased estate. And the allegation was that the person of interest had stolen 6.5 million rand from the deceased estate. And during the course of our investigation, we had cause to go and visit the person of interest to say that, look, we have these allegations, we'd like to get your version of events. And, if you didn't steal the money, it's fine, but if you did steal the money, maybe you should put it back because you would face criminal charges. So, as I mentioned to you earlier, if you're investigating criminals, quite a lot of them like to think, oh, I can get this guy off my back, I'll open a counter investigation. So he opened a docket in Alberton in November under that number 799/11/2012. And that accused person alleged that I had said to him, if you pay me 3 million, we'll let the case go away. But he was a bit silly because I had one of my staff with me, a forensic specialist was with me, a lady by the name of Melissa Naidu. And as a standard procedure, we tape recorded the discussion. So nothing of the kind was said. So I did a warning statement because I did a statement because the investigating officer of the case from Alberton Police Station phoned me and said, listen, this guy's opened a case against you. We need to get your statement. So I said, no problem. And I went and I gave him a copy of the docket we'd opened against that person of interest, alleging theft of 6.5 million rand. And the prosecutor took a decision not to prosecute on the docket the counter investigation that had been opened against us. But Flock wasn't happy with that, and he worked with another prosecutor, and they took a decision based on a new docket that had been created on the basis that the old docket had gone missing. Meanwhile, it hadn't gone missing. They were able to get evidence that he'd gone and taken that docket and made a sworn statement saying that the docket had been stolen. In fact, in his sworn statement, he alleged that I'd stolen the docket, but he'd forgotten that when he went to the police station, he refused to sign for it. And they said, no, you must sign. He said, then you must phone the commissioner, which at the time was General Pashlani. They said, no, if you want me to sign for it, you must phone the commissioner. And the guy, instead of phoning the commissioner, he just entered on the system that this fellow had come along and taken the docket and refused to sign for it, but it was on the system. So now they knew he had taken that docket.
Yes, then in the annexure that
follows.
It follows at 143.
Yep.
Your sworn statement, you then also catalog.
I catalog everything in detail. So we
Yeah.
talk about this this fellow Flock.
Yeah.
And then if I go to page 146, because obviously anybody can read the whole thing, but I just want to
Yeah, no, I just want us to
highlight the important areas. If I go to page 146, paragraph
56 to 156.
146. Page 146, paragraph 9. I've said Kcher shot Jackson dead on 2010-05-03 at Smith's house rented in Kempton Park, and together with the corrupt general in crime intelligence. And the importance of this is very important because I found out who that corrupt general was, and I opened the docket against him. And his name is not mentioned in here. I think he's deceased now. His name was Joey Mabasa. So then what happened was this fellow Cyril Beaker was murdered. Then we go to page 148, paragraph 14. I explain in detail here where General Muno fits in the relationship with Radovan Kcher. And we talk about the undercover agent who was arrested with the people that were trying to kill me on the 9th of January, 2014. So they walked into a trap. They were all caught. Now, after that, I explain the link between Flock and Muno, because at the time, Flock was working in Muno's offices. And if you go to paragraph 18, which is on page 149,
Yeah.
I subsequently got a statement in 2016 from who was then a policeman, a warrant officer or captain, I can't remember, at Hartbeespoort Dam. His name was Kcher. And he gave me a statement in October 2016. And the statement is available if anybody wants to see it, but it says, in or during late 2014, I was working what was then known as the National Intervention Unit. This is a group of detectives that operated under direct control and management of then Divisional Commissioner for Detectives, Lieutenant General Muno. It was whilst working under Muno that I first came across Warrant Officer Flock. I could see that his conduct in late 2014 appeared to be directed towards finding any information he could find that would incriminate Paul O'Sullivan in any crimes at all. It was not as if there was a specific complaint. It was more like he was on a fishing expedition. I say this because he asked me several times if I could help him find any dirt on Paul O'Sullivan. I made it clear that I'd previously worked with Paul O'Sullivan's office and he was professional at all time. Now, we had done an investigation in 2011 or 2012 involving an attempted murder or shootings. And that took place in the policing area near Hartbeespoort Dam. And that was my first dealings with him. this fellow called Kcher. He was the investigating officer of that case. And the person that had not been murdered, but believed he was going to be murdered, had come to us and asked us to help. So this then led to me meeting Kcher, and Kcher then gave me the statement.
So, Mr. O'Sullivan, these are all catalogued.
Yes, it's very
And,
well catalogued. And if I go now to page 155.
So you then at one stage, and we started the interaction, cataloging the difficulties, problems that you were experiencing in the period after 2011 into 2014, 2015. And these are all contained in these documents. And they are dated and signed almost contemporaneously during that period. So it's not documents that you have now constructed after the event.
No, in fact, Chairman.
And then you were also then forced, as you described, you were forced into exile because of threats on your life and so on.
No, I wasn't forced into exile, Chairman. No. What happened was
But you went back to the UK.
No, I go up and down all the time. I didn't go back to the UK. That was in 2006.
I was earlier.
Yes.
Okay, then I'm mistaken. Sorry.
In 2006, I got intelligence that I was going to be murdered. And then after a while, nothing happened. And then I got further intelligence that they were planning to kill my family.
Yeah.
So I moved the family out. Now, what took place round about this time was I had opened the docket in 2015, in March 2015, against Dudumai Eni, the then chairman of South African Airways. And the docket I opened against her resulted in a raid being carried out on my offices at the instructions of Munu by this fellow warrant officer Flock. And they had a search warrant and they seized my computer, and that took place on the 15th of April 2015. So I launched an urgent application and I had the warrant set aside, and the court issued an order that my computer had to be handed back to me, and that if they had any copy of any information that they downloaded from my computer, that it must be destroyed. But unfortunately, they didn't comply with that order. So in fact, what they did was they copied my computer, handed me back my computer, and then kept the copy and started going through it to look to see if they could find something that they could use. It's what we would call the fruit of a poison tree. And in this process of going through my computer, they then came up with a whole lot of dockets against me. But the witnesses, or the complainants, whatever you want to call it, in the cases against me, were criminals that we had investigated and we'd opened dockets against in the forensic practice. And now suddenly, all the people, and I said, well, this is very strange. The first incident that took place.
So none of these cases went to court to be prosecuted.
Oh, yes.
And there were no successful prosecutions against you.
They went to court. So what happened was, the first case was on the 1st of April, 2016. And I was on the way to fly to London. And I had two of my children with me. And their ages at that stage were 8 years old and 9 years old. And just after boarding the plane, as the doors were closing, there was a bang, bang, bang on the door. And the door was opened. And I know because I was sitting very close to the door. And they opened the door. And it was the police. And they said, no, we have a warrant of arrest for Paul O'Sullivan. He needs to get off the plane. Now, I've got an 8-year-old and a 9-year-old daughter with me. So I said, no, let them fly. I'll get their mother to meet them at the other end. And they said, no, the airline said, no, they can't fly without the adult. They'll have to come off the plane with you.
And the warrant is in relation to which matter?
They didn't have a warrant. They lied.
Yeah.
There was no warrant. And then after
You asked for them to show you the
I
warrant.
asked them to show
And
me.
you're sitting on the plane.
Yes. And they couldn't show me the
And the
warrant.
doors have closed already?
They've opened the doors again. So the doors were closing. There was a knock on the door. And they opened the door.
And this is an international flight?
This is the South African Airways flight to London.
Yeah.
So by this stage, my 8 and 9-year-old daughter was sitting comfortably in their seat across the aisle from me. And they've got their little coloring in books and they're busy coloring in as children do. And now suddenly I'm dragged off the plane with my 2 children. And after we get dragged off the plane, and remember, we've gone through passport control. So we've gone out of the country already, but they insist on taking us back through passport control to stamp us back into the country. And then in front of my children, they put handcuffs on me. 8-year-old and a 9-year-old daughter. And then they assault me in front of my children. Then I call my wife to come and collect the children. After I call my wife to come and collect the children, my wife came there. Then they took my phone off me. And then they took the children away. My wife took the children away. Then they took me at 230 kilometers an hour to Pretoria Central Police Station. And they kept me in a rat-infested cell with excrement and sewage running across the floor. I couldn't sit down because they were